Did you guys hear that?
Yep.
Yeah.
The hell?
What the hell was that? Yeah.
And then I got a prompt on my phone screen too.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
By continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to be recorded. Okay.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
what it says?
Wow.
Well then. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Jets Centric podcast. It's Lyss here. I'm joined by Daniel, Justin, and Bryan today. We just thought we'd sit down and do a quick little series recap of the series that we had against the Oilers. We realized we did a lot of intermission stuff and post-game stuff. We haven't put out an official podcast episode on it, so we thought we'd come out here today and do that for you. So here we are on Saturday, about 5 days out from the Jets sweeping the Oilers at 1 a.m. on the Monday of May long weekend. It's been a great week for me. I don't know about you guys.
Well, Tuesday was pretty rough after that triple overtime.
Right.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I work at a bank, and on the Tuesday, when I woke up in the morning, I put on, I have a Jets shirt, and it's a ladies cut, so I can dress it up a little bit, so it was still within dress code, and it was great. Everyone who came in was like, "Oh, did you stay up for the game tonight?" And I was like,
"Oh yeah,
yeah."
I was thankful to be off on Tuesday.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
me too. Yeah.
Oh man, I was the only one at work. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Well, definitely if you had said to me a week before that, hey, you should book that Tuesday off because the Jets are going to sweep the Oilers at 1 a.m. on Monday, I would have said, cut the hell up. So,
yeah.
But I've never been happier to have my NHL bracket screwed up so much. And yeah, so we are, the game 6 of the Montreal-Toronto series is tonight. It's 3-2 Toronto at present. Montreal's playing at home in front of fans tonight, so it could go to 7, it could not. Either way, we don't know who we're playing yet, but we do know that the Oilers suck and Connor Hellebuyck is a god. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know if I go as far as to say the Oilers suck, but I do want to say I think they outplayed us in 3 out of 4 games as far as their skaters go. Like I thought game 2, the Jets were very good all together, but ultimately Connor Hellebuyck is the great equalizer, right? So yeah, you just can't be anything but happy you have that guy in your net.
For sure.
Exactly, yeah. And I think he what did the Jets let in? I think 8 goals in that almost 5 full games of time we played, if not mistaken, something like that. So I
think that's right, yeah.
I want to say 1-0, 1-0-3-4.
4.
Well, yeah, okay.
4 and 3, yeah. So that's 8, yeah. So that's pretty good. And that was about almost 5 full games of ice time, including all the overtime action they had. Or actually, I guess just about over that. So that's, that's pretty impressive to say the least. And him rocking a 950 some save percentage into the next round, I think that's something, hopefully, not hopefully, but he has to keep that up if the Jets want to continue on.
Yeah, for sure. That did not feel like a traditional series sweep. Like usually when you get a 4 straight, it's like a team that's clearly better and they dominate them in multiple facets and they're like just coming in waves. Yeah, like the Avalanche, right? A team that's like clearly poised for a deep run that gets a weak opponent. And that was not how this series went. Like typically you get a goalie to steal a game or 2 for you, but Connor Hellebuyck basically like stole the series in a sense. And I mean, it was just an incredible showing from him. And it just shows time and time again how lucky as Jets fans we are to have that man behind our team, right? So he just made the extra save, and I didn't think Smith was like particularly awful, but like Hellebuyck just elevated his game to like a god tier level, and we got to be thankful.
It was so funny. Jay Fresh posted a graphic that was like the goal saved above expected, and Mike Smith was at a negative 1.9, and he's like, guess what, guys? That's not even that bad. Connor Hellebuyck was at a 6.6. 6.6. But honestly, I'm not as pessimistic as you guys are right now because Connor Hellebuyck was also in net every other game we played the Oilers this season except for like 1 or 2. And so the fact that we were able to beat them meant because we still scored some goals and we still outchanced them on a couple of different occasions. So I'm still like holding out a little bit of hope. Right. But like obviously without him, it would have been a reverse sweep.
Yeah. So I think let's see. We had what was it? We outscored them by 1 goal aside from the empty net goals in regulation. in that series.
The 4-1 first game, yeah.
Yeah, it was so close. Like any of those games could have gone either way, right? Like I don't think you can say it was a domination by any stretch. I think a lot of the Edmonton fans are like, oh, well, where do we go from here? I see a lot of bashing Connor McDavid on social media and stuff like that. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. I don't think they played a bad series by any stretch of the imagination. They got to shore up their depth for sure. But ultimately, it was a close series that Hellebuyck tipped the scales in, I think, every single game. So
even in the one where the Jets on Sunday, they had that 4-1, they came back. Hellebuyck, I mean, sure, he let in the 4 goals, but he stopped when he had to keep them in it a little bit. Because I said twice, oh, that's the game at 3-1, and then it was 4-1. I was like, wow, that'll do it.
Yeah.
But obviously, you're going to let in 4 goals every once in a while. It doesn't matter what kind of caliber goalie you are. All the goalies do that. Doesn't matter. And that was the one game where the offense actually did something when they were allowed to let loose in the third period, right? And just go nuts on Edmonton and get those 3 goals in like 2 minutes and 10 seconds or whatever. And then finally win it in overtime.
If your offense though is able to like do what they did there, like your goalie still has to be able to stop.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because say we had gotten to that 4-3 point and the momentum was on our side and they got one chance and he let that in, that game was done. If they had stopped the momentum. But that's one of those things where it's like, I don't think he did anything overly stellar in that period of time. I don't remember the game very well in that sense because I wasn't really watching Connor Hellebuyck at that point. I was watching Mike Smith. Like, please, be Mike Smith. But he did what he had to do. And I think that's one of the greatest parts about him is obviously he can stand on his head. But he is just solid through and through, especially when we need him most. So, like, this is a Connor Hellebuyck fan account, and we all know that.
Yeah. That's one thing I remember. I can't remember the exact context of the argument or what it was, but someone was talking about I swear it was Grant Fuhr. And they were like, he'll let in 3, but he won't let in that 4th goal. And that's kind of what I said after. I was like, Hellebuyck let in 4, but he didn't let in that 5th goal kind of thing, right? And obviously allowing 4 or 5 goals or whatever in a game is not necessarily ideal, but it's just kind of that little bit of clutch, I guess, to make that timely save when he needed to, because I'm sure he had to make a couple in the third period that we just don't remember because we were so like thrilled with the result of that third period plus that overtime, right? So he just did enough in that game to squeak through, but in the other 3 games he did definitely more than enough to pull his weight there in the other 3 games of that sweep. So and never mind playing nearly 3 full games in about 31 hours for all those players by the time it was said and done there Sunday, Monday. So that's just crazy in itself.
They were absolutely dead by the end of that. Like I was watching and it's like, oh my goodness. Every time the puck was turned over, I'm like, hands on my head. Oh, they're having trouble staying on their feet now.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't even necessarily, it wasn't good hockey by the end there. They're just trying to survive. And then eventually Kyle Connor pots the goal there and you scream in excitement and then you let out a huge sigh of relief.
Yeah.
How fitting too is it that it's Kyle Connor that scores the goal, and I know it's like the 9th period, whatever, all the excuses, but he's not back checking. He's just floating in the neutral zone, hanging for an outlet pass, and then of course he buries the goal on there on the shot, and like it's just such a fitting way for it to end. Hey?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It was so funny. But you know what we didn't talk about enough on that goal was Connor McDavid. Okay, here are my thoughts on Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid is the best player in the NHL, and I am willing to say that he's better than Wayne Gretzky. Like, I know that's a ridiculous thing for me to say right now, but I am almost there. I think he's underpaid. I think the media talks about him.
Oh, he's definitely underpaid.
I have a lot of thoughts about him, most of them good, but I was so happy to see Neil Pionk just get that puck from him and right when he needed to and make that little chip up the ice. I was like, this is so perfect. It was so funny. The rent-free memes. Neil Pionk does not live in Connor McDavid's head rent-free. I can assure you of that, but it was still quite funny.
And the way that, like, it was kind of almost almost a lazy play by McDavid, because in that situation, that was coming off that penalty kill the Oilers had, right? That's why they were so spread out. They were both the D were going off for a change, I think, in that. And he made a half-ass. Yeah, something crazy. But he made a half-ass attempt to get it like behind the D and kind of flubbed it a little bit to Pionk there, and Pionk just had Pionk. I think I don't know if he actually said he saw Connor or not, but it looked like he said he didn't, right? So he was just chipping it out. Yeah, he was just chipping it out. And there's Kyle Connor just waiting there with half breakaway up the right wing, right? So
he shouldn't have admitted that. Like
he should have said, "Oh, I saw."
He should have gone full hero on that one.
Like, no one would have known.
We would have, especially in the third overtime. You don't know what they can see. Like I was said by halfway through the second, like their eyes are crossed and they don't know where they're going, up or down. And I think, like you mentioned there, after probably the first half of that first overtime, I think that's when the play really slowed down after those first 10 minutes. And then it was just survival mode and try not to get beat around the edge by a guy that can't even skate anymore. So that's probably pretty easy considering that. But
it's funny.
I actually want to talk about that overtime super quickly though. And I remember one of the other overtimes, I don't know, there were too many, but in our post game or our like between third and overtime intermission, we were like, is Paul Maurice going to shorten the bench? And everyone's like, that means he's going to bench Nate Thompson and Trevor Lewis? Not a chance. Wow. And then he did. Do you think that's his choice, or do you think it was because Alex Chiasson and Jujhar Khaira were benched as well?
Are we speaking specifically of the fourth game?
Yes, the last game. Because that was the only one I think that benched anyone.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right. I think it's probably a little bit of both, but he definitely obviously had the lineup control. So like of matching the lines. So I think that probably factored into, right. I'm not really like, obviously I don't want Thompson or Lewis on the ice in overtime. Like maybe Lewis, like for one of those flyer shifts, plug shifts. But at least he got Perreault out there for a few, and Perreault was able to actually generate probably the most chances, I think, for the Jets in his limited overtime ice time. But I think it's probably a proponent of both. The Oilers had shortened their bench immensely. They were basically running 4D and like 8 or 9 forwards or whatever. So I guess that probably did have some kind of factor.
I think I was looking at it. I think Chiasson and Khaira were the only ones who didn't play at all. But like Devin Shore played like 3 minutes. Gaetan Haas played like 4 minutes. Like it wasn't like he only really like benched a couple of people, like, but they were still running basically 2 lines the entire time. And then what are their names? Kiki and Bear didn't play. What the hell's his name?
Slater Kukuk.
Yeah, they were calling him Kiki when he played in Chicago, and then all of a sudden he
showed up.
Yes. And then he showed up in Edmonton and he played like a first game this year that we watched, and I was like, his name is Kiki. It's the same thing, like, I don't even know. It was weird. Anyway.
The first time I watched him was, I think, as a rookie in Tampa, and they called him Cuckoo then. So I don't that Kiki. I don't get that, but hey, whatever.
However they want their name pronounced,
I guess. Or
yeah. I remember I wanted to check. I was like, I wonder where he's from, and he's from like some township in like southern Ontario, and I was like, oh, okay. Anyways, but they didn't play, and then that was a whole thing with Ethan Bear making a mistake that literally any defenseman could make at any point in their career and getting benched. You know what? Sometimes that happens. And then the internet exploding on him. Probably the worst thing to happen in the entire NHL this year. Garbage. Probably the worst thing.
That was awful.
I don't even know what to say other than just that's not right at all in any sense.
No, it's one of those things where it's like life is so much bigger than hockey, and you need to never do that. And if you ever do that, like literally go fuck yourself. Like that is just so messed up. I was really upset about that, and it was nice to see everyone that I respect really standing up, and it was nice to see some of his teammates and stuff, even if maybe it wasn't always the most genuine thing to do. I don't know, but I think a lot of people were on the right side of that one, so I was really happy about that. But yeah, there was just, I don't know. I think it was the right thing to do, like, especially at the beginning of overtime, the right thing to do is to put your scoring guys out as much as you can just to get this over with. But I think Garrett Hull had a tweet that was like, I think the longer the overtime goes, the better it is for the Jets than it is for the Oilers. And I think, generally speaking, I agree with that.
Yeah, because the Jets could roll 9 pretty easily, I think, is compared to the Oilers. They could probably only roll 6 like they did for most of it, right?
Oh, did you see the shift length that Nurse was playing?
No,
like
that was out of this
he
world.
had like a 4+ minute shift at one point. That was
it was 5.
thing.
It was 5.
It was 5, eh?
That was in the first, yeah.
Because it was penalty kill and power play back to back, wasn't it?
No, they had the PK for 2 minutes, and then they just said screw it and kept him out there.
Something like that, yeah. He played all 2 minutes of a special teams. I think it was penalty kill, and then he stayed out for another like double that. And I was like, what?
A minute and a half is a stupid long shift. 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Well, and then we didn't score on him. I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
That's also part of it. Like, no, but
that was
and I just think it's hilarious too. Like, people like Oilers fans are like, I don't think Nurse is getting any credit outside of Edmonton for the year that he's having. Darnell Nurse is a fine defenseman. Like, I think he's okay, but nobody should be playing 5 minutes a night. And like, Darnell Nurse is not the one guy you should be relying on. Like, that just shows that their team has a lot of holes if you have to play Darnell Nurse 5 minutes, like a 5 minute shift.
Darnell's can help you a lot in the O-zone. I do think he struggles sometimes in his own end a little bit, but
well, and I think he always has, and that's why this year he was better, and that's why people thought he was really good. He's always had that offensive, knack, I think, but his defense sort of picked up this year, in my opinion.
Play him with the offensive players, I guess, and you'll get some results, I think.
Call that the Tyson Berry effect.
That's what I think it must have been Maurice or one of the coaches mentioned going in for the Jets, mentioned that they basically run like the McDavid line, whoever, whether it's with Draisaitl, with Nurse and Berry, they rolled them as a 5-man instead. And then obviously Nurse plays a little bit like with other lines, but when they roll out, they all roll out together. Doesn't matter what the situation is, pretty much. So that's how you create those offensive results, right? Put them out with the best players.
Oh yeah, I know for sure, and that's what we do with Connor Shipley Wheeler. You want to put your best guys out there, so you put them in Josh Morrissey and just offensive, powerhouse. I want to sort of talk about the Jets in particular, and I want everyone to sort of think about a couple of people they thought had a really good series, and then a couple of people that they want to see more from in the next. And since I'm just throwing that on you guys now, I want to say that I think Josh Morrissey had a terrific series. I think Connor Hellebuyck had a terrific series, and I think I wanted a third. I think Blake Wheeler had a good series. And I'd like to see more from Kyle Connor, Pierre-Luc Dubois, and Neil Pionk next series. Neil Pionk didn't have a bad series, but I still think I'd like to see more from him. And maybe that means not playing with Derek Forbort. I don't know.
Right. I think that's where you start. Yeah.
That's the starting point.
Those are my three on both sides. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in.
Sure. Am I supposed to pick 3 and 3 or?
I don't care. It's not a big
I had one in mind that I did like, and that was in fact Blake Wheeler. My one of my biggest questions coming into the series was, are you going to see the Blake Wheeler that we saw at the end of the regular season, or kind of what you saw in the middle of the season? I thought you did see some of the Blake Wheeler from the end of the season there. I don't know if it was a whole injury thing that was causing him to play worse all season, but he was really generating a lot of offense, I thought, in that series, which is absolutely huge for the Jets, because they were relying on wins without kind of that offensive generation from him all season. Now that you have that, I think it opens up so many more options for your lineup.
Absolutely.
And in terms of someone I want to see a little bit more from, I do think he did a pretty darn good job overall in terms of the matchup against Connor McDavid in that series, but I do want to see a little bit more from Dylan DeMello. I thought he wasn't doing some of the things that made him a really good player during the regular season, and a lot of that just, I think, comes from the style of play the Jets wanted to play against McDavid, and that's kind of a conservative style. But when he's being aggressive, stepping up, making pinches, kind of being able to read the play, that's when he's at his best. And I want to see him do more of that in the second round. It's not a big thing, and I don't know that it's all his fault that he wasn't doing as much of that, but I think he's going to play a huge factor in the second round.
I think it's reasonable though to say that you like parts of someone's game or you like the player and still want more from them. Like that's a very
big time. Dylan DeMello is my favorite defenseman on the Jets.
Exactly. Yeah, and you could still want more from him. It's all good. Justin, what about you?
Well, for the player that I was impressed on, I guess I'll dive a little deeper on Morrissey. Kind of you touched on him there, but I thought he really elevated his play. Just eye test wise, I know his numbers still were around like 40% expected goals, which isn't great. Obviously, you're playing McDavid, and that's a tough matchup for anybody. But I just thought eye test wise, he looked a lot more confident, and he was making some more of the right decisions, and he was being physical, and he was being a little bit more aggressive. And I thought, that's big for Morrissey. And I thought we saw a better Josh Morrissey. I know it's only a 4-game sample, and he was pretty much not good the entire year, but I thought that he really stepped up his play. And obviously it helps that he has DeMello on his part as his partner rather than Tucker Poolman. That's obviously a big help for him. But I thought that he really stepped it up and was pretty solid on that top pair for sure. More than just having DeMello, right? I thought individually he did some things. And in terms of guy who I'm expecting more from, really, I would say Connor and Dubois more so kind of as a tandem there. I thought Kyle Connor was a little bit soft on pucks, and he wasn't really, like he was definitely the weak link on that line. Like Wheeler really elevated this play, and Scheifele was fine. But I thought that Connor, when he's not scoring, he doesn't really look all that good. So, and he wasn't scoring besides on the empty net in game 1 and then the series winner. So I thought for most of the series, he was kind of just there and not really doing anything all that positive. And then with Dubois, I mean, I know he's playing hurt, or you would assume that he's at least not at 100% right now, but he hasn't really had a fantastic season here for season number 1 in Winnipeg. And he took some really dumb penalties in the series. And I thought at 5-on-5, he really didn't do all that much for the Jets. I thought on the power play with Ehlers and Pionk, he looks good kind of on that right wing as the one-time shooter there. But like 5-on-5, I really hope that he can step it up in the series against either the Leafs or the Habs, because they're going to need him to step up for sure.
And Daniel, what about you?
Yeah, so you guys pretty much touched on like half the team there. So I'll
sorry.
That's so there's 4 of us. I was last. But
I'm feeling Hanel at a step up.
Yeah, I need him to step up on the ice there. Just get him on the ice, and that's a big improvement for me. But I actually like this series from Scheifele. I kind of, from what we had seen this season, kind of the same with Wheeler. Like you never, he played well the entire year, but I thought he actually did step it up a little bit more in these 4 games they played, and he had the couple of big goals. So that's something that is good to see, that, and that part of that could be because Wheeler has also is either fully healthy or elevated up to that next level. And they weren't really coming on there at that last little bit of the season there. They were playing better. I saw Scheifele in the defensive zone do a few checks. So that's something that you don't see grown to see not very often. So
except on the Cassian goal.
Yeah. Well, that was who knows about that, but and then you mentioned the power play there with actually, I'm just gonna kind of go off on a tangent here about the power play. And Maurice ran the second unit first a few times, which is something good to see. And whether that was because of who was on the ice heading into the power play, but usually that tends to not matter very much for Maurice. He usually just sends out that 1, sends out that 2. So it was nice to see them use that second power play unit as the first power play unit on a few more than one occasion or 2. And they actually were able to get some chances and stuff. And I've gone completely off the rails here, but so yeah, I kind of like what I saw from Scheifele, and obviously Josh Morrissey. We all enjoyed watching him score those couple of goals, right? He made some very good individual plays in one-on-one battles, and winning the puck and so on, and making good back checks, poke checks, stick checks, that kind of stuff. So obviously he has definitely come on, I'd say probably in the last 3/4 of this, or the last quarter of the season, and then into the playoffs. Now he's really turned it around, and hopefully that's something that we can continue to see. And then I'm going to go a little bit more here, but I think I actually like the way that Logan Stanley was utilized, and how he was able to play to the level that he needed to play to at least keep up and not allow many chances against when he was called upon. And I know obviously it's sheltered, but you need those guys that are sheltered to be able to at least equal out what the other team is putting at them, right? I don't know if I explained that quite right, but
no, that's perfect, I think.
Yeah, you just need them to at least play the role that they're asked to play, right? Play their 13, 14 minutes, and he did that, as well as Tucker Poolman too, right? They kind of held their own when they had to, and there was times even when they did get stuck out against McDavid on an icing, and they just held on long enough to be able to get that change or get that whistle to get off, right? And that's something you need.
Yeah, I don't dislike that pairing in the slightest. Like, I am more than okay with it.
It brings me back to the way
who's been super hard on Pullman and Stanley all year. So
yeah, and to the way that brings me back to like Tyler Myers, right? Like when he was playing those 13, 14 minutes a night, he was great. That's the kind of play that that's where he thrived, was that third pairing. And I'm still talking here, but guys I want to see more from. Probably I could agree with seeing more from Kyle Connor, especially on the 5-on-5. Like, we know on the power play he's going to get a billion shot opportunities, or a billion shots, whatever. But playing the 5-on-5, just be better. Basically, that's all. Just overall, even in the ozone, just be better. Don't do the suck, as Ovechkin said that one time. So, other than that, you can always expect more from pretty much everybody, always. But there's definitely some guys that have underperformed more, like Dubois and such, that we just need to at least see them actually do something productive, right? So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, bro, just get good.
Just get good.
I'd like to see more from that second line, period. Like, I think, firstly, they had Andrew Kopp at the beginning, and they had the Perreault Lowry Appleton line. That was way better than the Kopp Lowry Appleton line, in my opinion. And then Ehlers only got to play one game. He was good, or two games. He scored. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, fake fan. And so once he's getting his groove back, but like we said, Dubois, we want to see more from him. And I didn't think that Stastny had the best series, which I really hate saying because I adore him with my whole heart. Right. But I just think he looked a little bit slower. And then he made a couple of dumb decisions. And I'm not, every hockey player makes dumb decisions, but that's his hallmark, is that he doesn't really do that. So I was really surprised to see that a couple times, a couple of bad giveaways and stuff. And he just seemed like he was always half a step behind, which is, fine. Lots of players play like that, but that's not what you want from your second line center. And I think he's probably going to be a little bit better in this series, especially when Ehlers is getting a little bit, heated up a little, and he's got a solid line, not changing every single game. I think we're going to see more from him, but I didn't love his series, and it pains me to say that, but I wanted to add that in too. I'd like to see more from that second line just in general.
Yeah, I think Paul Stastny's one of those players that almost kind of plays to the level of his line mates and kind of tries to adapt his game to fit his line mates. And yeah, I kind of agree with you. I don't know if he had the greatest series. Yeah, one thing I've been hammering on forever is I really want to see him back with Kopp and
Ehlers.
Yeah, Kopp and Ehlers. But I think that would require doing something to Dubois that I don't think Lyss would be particularly fond about.
I don't even care anymore. I don't care.
I don't care anymore.
See, no, I don't
it's
care.
It's the playoffs.
No, but if you leave that top line together, because they'll be together until I die. Not they die. They'll be together. Yeah. But then you have a Kopp, Stastny, and Ehlers line, and then you have a Perreault, Lowry, Appleton line.
What if you ran a scoring fourth line and went with Dubois and say, I don't know, Vesseline, and then whoever, Harkins, Lewis, whatever have you on the other wing?
You would kill somebody. Like they would just be, especially if you have like every single line that's able to generate things with having Matthew Perreault with Mason Appleton down there. I wouldn't say Lowry is the biggest like offensive generator or whatever, but he can do a lot of good things, especially when playing with guys like that. Like I think you would be shoving pucks down other guys' throats, like, and against Jack Campbell or against Carey Price, if Carey Price is not playing well, sign me up. Like that sounds good to me.
Yeah, I was thinking about that intermittently throughout the last series, and I thought, like, my head always goes, why not try it? But I know they're not going to try it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is so weird to me. Like, I don't, like, Dubois comes in, he's a young guy, he hasn't been that good. Why does he have infinite tenure on the second line? Like, where did he earn that from? Like, I don't get it. I give it to him because I love him.
Yeah, I was gonna say it comes from you, Lyss.
My impact on the team. No, but like genuinely, it's actually like a question I've thought of a couple times. Like, why? Like, I realize his style of play is a top six, but why?
I feel like it's because they don't want to like they traded him for Line, right? So like that was like a huge star. And I feel like if they demote him to the bottom six or the fourth line, it's going to be like, oh, wow, you're admitting you lost the trade or something like that. So I feel like they really want to make him work, and they're sort of jamming him in there kind of thing.
If I'm a coach, that's just a this year thing. Like he's a big part of this team going forward for sure. And they're going to be relying on him to step it up big time. I just don't know if it's there for him in these playoffs. There's just something that's not right, in my opinion.
No, and we've been saying this since literally March. Like, once this guy gets a full training camp in with the Jets, like, we're going to see a different side of him. And, like, I think once we trade Scheifele and he signs for $10 million somewhere else, having Dubois and Perfetti as our top six centers going forward is going to be the most beautiful thing on planet Earth.
We'll see. I really like Perfetti. Perfetti's had a really nice showing at the World Championships too.
Yeah, right? He has actually. He had that game winner yesterday, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I love so much of what I've seen from him, and I just think about, you know, the two of them, and because like I guess they're kids. Like Cole Perfetti's 19. He's only 3 years younger than Dubois. Like they're pretty much the same age. Like they're
pretty much the same age.
I realize I realize it's insane to say right now because there's so much development that happens in those years, but you're still getting 10 more useful years out of both of them. It's not like you have a 29-year-old and a 19-year-old. Like that's your future going forward. So same thing with Heinola and Sandberg. Like that's a pretty solid core going forward. Like Heinola and Sandberg could be the new Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook in their prime. Like let's go. I'm looking forward to it. But
I'll be honest with you. I kind of want to see Dylan Sandberg in the next series, but I know it won't happen. But the way Forbort has kind of struggled,
right?
I just think Sandberg's a really nice stylistic fit with Pionk, and I want to see it.
I just want to see not Forbort. I don't care who the heck they got out there. They could even put in Ben right now, and I probably wouldn't be all that upset about it.
There's something really off
that I'm
with
having
Forbort.
A serious issue with in this series is Forbort. I don't think anyone else I'm having as big of a problem with as him.
If I could pick, if Maurice called me and said, who do I take out? Like I would say Forbort, like without a question. And I would say put whoever you want in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And I feel like, I think he'd be okay if he was on the third pair, but when he's on the second pair with Pionk, he gets really exposed, right? He just can't keep up with like top six talent.
Because you're still playing those top six or top nine or whatever talent.
Right. Like, so he's not getting the sheltered minutes and whatnot.
I think now on this team, you have 3 defensemen that could play in your top pairing, and I think you have 3 defensemen that could play on your bottom pairing. I think the middle pairing is kind of unbalanced in that sense. And because I think, demote Forbort to the third pairing makes sense. But then either Stanley or Pullman is going to have more minutes in the second, and I don't think that that's what you want either.
No,
so it's one of those like, catch-22s. I think that is just not going to go well either way. So the answer is put in Heinola. But but honestly, I don't love him and Pionk together. They stress me out too much. I don't think it's the greatest fit. But I just I think it's serviceable for the time being, but I think once you're matching up against Toronto or Montreal, I think he could manage. But if it was against Toronto, I really think we're going to see more struggles from Derek Forbort in the next series.
I just think he's not right? Like, he's been an okay NHLer in the past, not obviously not a top 4 defenseman really at any point, but he's been an okay defenseman. So I don't know. Maybe if they put him on the third pair, he would be fine. But and I will give credit where credit's due. He is a pretty good penalty killer.
Yeah, that's a good point. We got to give credit there. His penalty kill has been actually the penalty kill, I think overall has been wasn't so bad in the series against Edmonton. I don't really have anything to back that up, but just eye test. And I know they had that one where they took 4 straight penalties there in the middle frame that one game. So they kind of, yeah, that was what
Dubois, Stanley. So is that the frame you're talking about?
It was game 3, the Sunday one there where they really they blew it and then came back and didn't blow it anymore. But yeah, it's when they had the 4 straight penalties like in that second period and leaking over in the third. They only that I think Edmonton only got 1 goal out of all that. So if you're penalty killing half the period and you only let in 1 goal, that's not too shabby, I don't think. And I can't.
Leon Draisaitl at 5-on-5 or 5-on-4 is terrifying. Like against that, like Connor McDavid is Connor McDavid. He's always terrifying, and I don't want him on the power play as much as you don't. But Leon Draisaitl, I think, becomes a different animal on that power play. So I think that was a huge motivator for those guys being able to kill off all those penalties. Like obviously, it doesn't reflect on the score sheet in favor of you, but it could have easily become 7-1 in the span of minutes there. So
yeah.
No, it's definitely a positive. I actually want to talk about something else too, though. Like I was scrolling through Twitter and I have never seen mainstream media people that I follow as excited about the Jets as they have been in this series. And like, I understand that Toronto is Toronto, like that's Canada's team, whatever the hell, the Toronto Sports Network. But it's just been really exciting to see people who haven't followed the Jets all year get excited about them. Like I understand that they're not the best team in the NHL, but it's been really fun to see people like watching Jets games and hearing what non-Jets fans have to say about the team and stuff. It's been really, really neat and I love it and I want to keep it up.
And to your point about the national coverage on the Jets, this is why we do the intermission shows during all the playoff games. Come hang out with us for 15 minutes instead of watching Bieksa and Cassie Campbell talk about cry over Nurse and whatever I don't even know what they were saying. I was too busy doing the intermissions, so
you're right.
That was good. So shout out to everyone that joined us, all those intermissions there. We had upwards of 40 listeners, I think, for each one. Even at 1:30 Tuesday morning, we had about 45 people on there. So that was good. So we're going to keep that up. Yeah, I didn't get to sleep till about 3 that morning. So.
It was a long night.
Yeah, no, but
you guys did a fantastic job. I wasn't involved in the last one there, but oh man, I was way too tired. You guys absolutely killed it.
After they scored, I was like, fire up Spaces right now.
And I was like, absolutely not. I think after the first overtime, I was like, I am tapped out. But and it's one of those things where it's like, you want to do a post game, but if it's like, if you lose, like the game doesn't really matter anyway. Like it wasn't like a crazy comeback, whatever. It's like whatever. But if you win, it's like the greatest moment in Jets 2.0 history. Yeah. So it's like you have to be ready just in case.
Yeah.
So you're right. It was good. Yeah, no, it's been a ton of fun. And like just in general, like I've just been loving, like obviously it's Twitter. There are always going to be people butting heads and that's part of its beauty. But it's been super nice just to like connect with all these random people. Like I remember I tweeted on the Jets Centric account. I was like, everyone drop your game day fits on like the first Jets game day, and everyone was showing pictures of their dogs dressed in white and all their Jets jerseys. Like it was just awesome. And like that's what I love about the playoffs, and especially this year, like it brings me so much joy because like my family is like dressing up in our white gear and sitting on our couch together. And it's hard because we're not, all together, but it's like sometimes it kind of feels like we are. So it's going to be a very Jets thing to go on the best run the year that we can all be together because our province is literally the COVID hotspot of like the freaking world. But you know what? It's been a ton of fun and I'm really happy that this gets to keep going.
Yeah, sure. I'm excited for whoever Montreal or Toronto, whoever we face. And I mean, if we can get a couple more games in, like we were saying, heading into the Edmonton series, we were like, if the Jets win, it'll be like 6 or 7 games. They'll force them, figure them out slowly over the time. And obviously they won in 4, but I think for the Jets to beat, especially Toronto, maybe not so much Montreal, but I think it'll be another 6 or 7 or apparently 4-game series. So, but that's something, you know, I think, and the Leafs and Habs are very different teams. Obviously, like the Leafs are juggernaut. I don't really know what other, they're the favorite, like clear-cut favorite. Yeah, I don't like that word either, but they're the clear-cut favorite, right? And then you got Montreal, who has an all-star, all-world goalie, maybe not so much this season, but is definitely capable of playing at that level, and Carey Price with an offense and with the rest of the team is not really all that hot, just overall, right? Just generally, and the style of play that they've changed to since they fired Julien there halfway through the year and hired Ducharme, and just two different teams that were, so it's kind of hard to talk about one or the other, but hopefully we get at least a long series or a Jets sweep again.
I actually want to touch on sort of what you said there. I'll throw it to Justin maybe. Like, have you been watching this Montreal-Toronto series at all? And like, what from that series are you like? I know I, for one, in that that last game, Campbell, like Toronto fans think that he's God on earth, like that's their savior, right? I think the Jets could really, really expose Jack Campbell in the way that he plays. He plays a little bit smaller than I think a lot of other goalies do, and I think they could really take advantage of that. And I also think that Montreal is not as good as Winnipeg, even though I don't think Winnipeg's that good. So I don't know, Justin, if you have any kind of like thoughts on the series that you've been watching so far that might reflect on what's to come in the series, whether it's Toronto or Montreal that wins.
Well, yeah, assuming that it'll be Toronto, right? Unless they somehow find another way to blow it, which would be hilarious. But
I would love it. That's what you get for not playing Nick Patan.
Yeah, there we go. Especially with the injuries too. They had a couple of injuries. Come on,
they did. Yeah,
give him a top 6 shot. Let's see it. But no. But with the Leafs, I think with Campbell, it's pretty similar to Mike Smith in the sense that he's had a really spectacular year, and he's played above his usual like level. But like, how sustainable is it? Like, is Jack Campbell really all of a sudden like a NHL starting goalie? Or can he maybe have a few games where he sort of falls back to average, where Hellebuyck really can outplay him, and then all of a sudden the Jets have like a big equalizer in terms of, you know, the Leafs on paper are a stronger team at 5-on-5, but if they have the much better goalie again, all of a sudden you never know what can happen, right? So for me, I guess it's all about, if they play the Leafs, does Jack Campbell keep his play up? And if he does, if there isn't really a clear-cut goalie advantage, I think that the Jets are in trouble. But if they can kind of maybe get some negative regression for Campbell, and he can kind of come back down to earth, that'll be a thing that can really hurt the Jets, I guess. But Montreal, I guess if it's Montreal, I don't know, like they're a team that's pretty similar to the Jets. I guess they generate a little bit more offense, but they don't have as much finishing talent. Right. And I do think that Carey Price is not Carey Price anymore. So he still is a okay goalie, but he's not like elite. And so I think it'll be an interesting matchup. I think against Montreal, I think the Jets win that series, but against Toronto, I don't see them pulling it out, to be honest.
I'll quickly jump back and say my predictions are always off. But my prediction for this series is definitely that we will not see a repeat of the Vegas series. We are not going to get out goalied. I am very, very convinced of that. I don't think whoever we play, if they beat us, I don't think it's going to be because their goalie carried them through that win. Very sure of that.
Here's what I think about goalies is like every goalie in the NHL is average except Connor Hellebuyck.
I think that's a little bit of Andre Vasilevsky erasure, but he also has a good team, so I do think about that a lot. But I
Vasilevsky had a great year.
He did.
I think otherwise, like he's been a very good goalie, but it's been an excellent year for him. But I can't help but to think that Connor Hellebuyck is just so far above the rest right now.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. And the thing with goalies, I think we have probably mentioned it in one of our pre-playoffs, is that in the North Division, like the Jets clear cut have the number one goalie by far. and that all the other three teams, you never know what you're going to get night to night. And like we have mentioned, Mike Smith, he did not play bad, just not enough to just not enough to pull them through. He let in the overtime goals, right? Instead of Hellebuyck light in the mid, right? Like one shot, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
But Hellebuyck did, obviously he won that series, but I'm trying to say that, like Mike Smith is Mike Smith, and Jack Campbell is probably not going to become a perennial all-star goalie. I don't even know how old he is, but he's definitely past that.
Old. He's just, he's kind of
like, he's not like, if he was good, we would have known it already, not found out this season, right? He's already kind of past that developmental of the early career kind of stage.
Yeah, he's 29.
So at 29, like, you kind of are what you are, and he's just been on a heater this season. In a shortened season that's been absolute chaos most nights anyway. And then you got Montreal. Carey Price is not Carey Price of the old, but I think he's still capable of maybe pulling that out for a game or 2 or 3, which he has to do now if the Leafs or if the Habs want to win. But the Jet, like, we know what we're going to get with Hellebuyck, and Hellebuyck is who he is, and that is otherworldly goalie, right? That's basically what Hellebuyck is compared to to pretty much any goalie in the league right now.
I think one of the issues that Montreal has right now is that obviously scoring is not everything, but they have no points from their defensemen in this series. And I think from a team that has very little offensive finishing among their top 6, that's something that's really holding them back. So I think if they could start, blasting a couple of those point shots, like whatever, like, I don't know, I don't watch them enough, but the fact that they have no defense, like no points from Jeff Petrie, who's having a freaking year, like, I think there's more to be seen from them. So if they were to start scoring, I think they could really be a force to be reckoned with in the next 2 games against Toronto. And yes, I'm saying next 2 games because I'm optimistic this is going to 7, even though I think it's going to be a little bit too much of a break for the Jets. But I would love to see Montreal win a game in, their first time playing against fans all year at home in a series that people thought they never would win. Like, I would just love to see it. And also I just want to see Toronto fans cry. I just want I thrive when I'm just seeing them complain and be frustrated and blame the refs. I'm like, bring it on, guys.
I can't remember what year it was. Toronto was playing Washington. I think it was in the first round, and there's like the street party crowd in Toronto, and Washington scored the winner in OT to win the series. And you got all the Toronto fans just on the street. They're like, and then all of a sudden,
yeah.
And it was just really funny.
That's like one of those things where it's like, if I'm on my deathbed and you play that for me, it might bring me back to life. Like, it's just like, I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was the year actually they ended up with that cigarette guy there or whatever. That was that dart guy. Remember that viral? That was that season. I think you're talking.
Got his own radio show or something.
Yeah, got his own radio show and all that because he was on camera with a cigarette in his mouth, unlit inside it was in Washington, I guess, so they panned for like Leafs fans or whatever, right? But yeah, that's just that. I think that's the season you're referring to. It's pretty good memory there. And speaking about the refs and that, how do we feel? Like, I thought the reffing in the Jets series was fine, like for what you have grown to expect. Like, obviously it's never going to be perfect, but from what you're like, we knew they don't call penalties, especially in the playoffs for whatever reason that is. But I can't remember who put out a tweet, but the penalties were pretty close to the same rate as the regular season. I wish I would have screenshotted that or been able to find it, or whoever put it out, but it was something like, it wasn't really that far off from what
I think it was Garrett.
It was probably Garrett, but it was
actually higher. I think there were actually more penalties in this series per game between the two teams than between the two teams in the regular season. Yeah,
that's what it was. So
one of those things where, like, I'm not a believer that for a game to be called fairly, the penalties need to be 5-5 at the end of the game. Like, that's not how it works. But it's one of those things where in the playoffs, the refs want to let them play But when you have a puck over glass, when you have a blatant slash or trip, you have to call those. So things against McDavid are not going to be those obvious ones. They're going to be like, oh, maybe that like was a bit of I don't even know. It's one of those things that are super subjective. So all these Oilers fans who are crying about how there was only like 1 or 2 penalties called on McDavid in that that's what you grew to expect from the refs, is that you're not going to get a lot of those should they, shouldn't they calls. Those ones aren't going to get called.
Yeah.
So maybe it's because it was more in our favor. I didn't think the roughing was overly bad in that. I complain about the roughing in every game, but I never pin losses on refs, even if they screw up one call that was the game-winning goal. If you were relying on that one call to win the game, you probably shouldn't be overly mad that you lost. Like, I don't know, but I didn't think the roughing was awful. But I always want to see more from them, see better from the refs. So
well, of course,
yeah. I don't think it's you can really blame the series or any one game on that kind of thing. Like, I think it's an overall thing where I guess a lot of people want more stuff to be called in the playoffs. Like, they want it to be more consistent playoffs and regular season, which I totally agree with. But I don't think you can really look at it as, okay, the refs were totally against the Oilers and one player, that kind of thing. Like, there were plenty of penalties missed against the Oilers as well too, right? So
yeah, I just think the standard of NHL reffing needs to be reevaluated. Like, they obviously they call the game to make it even. I mean, the power plays were 11 for the Oilers in the series and 10 for the Jets. So basically, like, that each team is going to get very close in terms of power play opportunities. And I don't think that's fair. Like, I mean, if a team's controlling the game and if they have the puck on their stick most of the time, and if they're drawing penalties, like, you should call the game by the rule book and not to sort of like, I don't know, kind of like try and game management and balance it out. Right. So, I mean, I could see why Oilers fans are upset, but I don't think that this is just like they really screwed up in this series thing. I think it's just, if they have any complaints, it should be just reffing as a whole. And that goes for the whole league. You can't really pinpoint that on just one team or one player. So.
Oh yeah, I think it's telling that Money Puck can come up with a model that can tell you the likelihood of the next team getting or the home team getting the next penalty or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely hilarious that they can.
It shouldn't be. Yeah, you shouldn't be able to predict that, right? That seems like something that should be pretty much variable, right? Like, you can take 7 tripping penalties in a row, like you guys, stuff like that. So it was just something that I had thought about. I saw a lot of they didn't call nothing but they actually called more penalties in the 4 games than they did against with these 2 teams during the regular season, right? So
I think I don't know if I overcompensate for this feeling. I just get so frustrated when people, like, when a hockey team, when the Leafs lose a game, and it's like, oh, the refs did this, oh, Montreal is dirty. It's like, is it possible that your team also just didn't do what they needed to do to win? And maybe me feeling that way overcompensates because I blame the Jets for everything. But it's also like, you got to find a fine line between there, because you cannot blame the refs for every single loss of your hockey team, because I promise you they're the only reason your team is losing. I promise you that. But I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at. I say it's my opinion, even though I just promised the world that that's not the case, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think we wanted to sit down today to chat a little bit about that series that it finished in a blink of an eye. No one was expecting it to finish that quickly, especially with our team coming out on the other side. But I think I speak for all of us when I say that we're really freaking excited about this. Like, maybe we're frustrated that we didn't see some of this stuff in the regular season. Maybe we're like, there are lots of reasons that we're always going to be a little bit negative, and that's just who we are. But we're also just pumped that our team is going to play another round of playoff hockey, and we're excited to see what comes next.
We're just negative people, and that's how it is.
Yeah. But and I think this has been going around a lot on Twitter lately, so I think I'm going to talk about it right here on the podcast. we are not telling you how to be a fan. We are never going to do that. That's not what we do. This is what we just want to talk about. I don't agree with Bryan on some things. Justin doesn't agree with Daniel on some things. Like, we're always going to be like that, but you're not going to tell someone else how to be a fan. We're just happy. We're just happy to have a team. Sorry, that's not what I was going to say. We're just having a good time. Stop telling other people how to enjoy hockey. It's not that deep. Enjoy it the way you want to enjoy it. Mind your own business and go Jets go.
Yeah, absolutely. I love having discussions with people. I don't like when people tell me, "Oh, just enjoy it, man," or that kind of thing. It's like,
I will not do that,
bro. I do analyze sometimes, so there is that. And no matter how good you think your team is, they're not perfect. So
right, like I think for myself, at least, like my favorite way to enjoy a hockey game is to watch it and see what I would do differently, because it makes me feel a little bit more involved than just being like, wow, they're all so good. I could never do that. Like, that would be easy enough to do, but that's just the way that I enjoy doing it. But you know what? Some of these people who never lost faith during the year and are just so positive, I also envy them. I love the way that they fan. Good for you. I'm super happy for you. You let me do my thing, I'll let you do yours, and then we can all just mind our own business.
Yeah, we're all gonna have a party whenever the Jets end up winning the Stanley Cup anyway. We're all gonna hug each other. We'll all be friends then. We're all gonna cheers each other, and it's gonna be just the biggest party.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it. See you guys in May for that.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Yeah, no. But yeah, if you want to do that when the Jets win the cup this year, because you know that's just the way that they do things, get vaccinated so that we can all party when they do it.
Absolutely.
This message is brought to you by Protect MB.
Hashtag Protect MB.
Alrighty. This was fun. Thanks, guys. Always a pleasure. And see you guys next week when the games start up. And yeah, always check out our Twitter for those intermissions. Sometimes pre-games, sometimes post-games. Who knows? And especially for those intermissions, if you have something to say, come on in and say your bit. We love to chat with people because we're all fans here and no one knows anything. So we all just like to visit with each other and disagree, agree. We're all family here, so
yeah, that's it. Yeah,
we'll see you guys. Thanks for listening.